Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us on a Thursday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to another episode of Exploring Intersections, which is a LinkedIn live space dedicated to unpacking intersections as we co-create a future of work that works for everyone. And today we are actually live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So join us from wherever you are, and feel free to watch our replay as well, so you can catch it on the same channels. And if this is your first time joining us, I'm your host, Meenakshi Iyer. I'm the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services, which is a boutique future work-oriented coaching, training, and consulting practice. We are physically based in the US, and we have the privilege of serving our clients around the world. Exploring intersections has been one of our passion projects, where we have guests from around the world, like our guest today, Suba Lakshminarasimhan, who's joining us from Bangalore in India. Suba and I connected a couple of years ago as part of an online platform called The Star and Me, and we connected through another online group called Shri Mantra. And so we've been having conversations via text and WhatsApp, Suba. So it's so lovely to finally have a face-to-face conversation with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely, Meenakshi. I mean, it's really a pleasure and honor to be here. Especially the way you were, explaining how you came to, have this passionate project of yours. This intersection, right? It's a beautiful word to, be there in that space, yeah,
Yeah.
and then reflect on. There are so many things coming up. Beautiful to, be a part of this, and thank you so much for inviting me. Truly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, I do want to share a little bit about how I came about exploring intersections. And you're absolutely right. I think as part of my own lived experience, I have found myself at intersections quite often, both in terms of my own identity and in terms of my work experience, in terms of my overall lived experience. And I find that intersections are such unique spaces that allow us the opportunity to develop a sense of empathy and understanding. And it's to me, intersections are the home of diverse perspectives. So I really enjoy having these conversations, especially with folks like you. Uh, yeah, so a little bit about Suba before we get into our conversation for today. So Suba is a leadership and executive coach. She's an ICF certified coach. She's also an ICF certified workplace conflict management coach, and she's a founder director of SLN Brand Studio. She is a speaker, mentor, a guide advisor, in addition to being a professional coach. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, and some of her notable achievements are the Her Rising Award from Jobs for Her and Digital Women Award from She People TV in 2019. And Suba has a multifaceted personality, and apart from doing all her people development work, she's also passionate about Kathak and badminton. And she's an ardent traveler, having lived and traveled to many countries in the world. What a pleasure to have you today, Suba, with us. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to dive into today's intersection, which is vulnerability and resilience.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for picking this as your intersection that you want to dig deeper into that. So I'd like to actually kick us off by asking you um, what's your take on this intersection, and why did you choose to talk about this today?
Definitely, Meenakshi. See, as I was listening to you, talking about my journey, right, as a part of this introduction, there are many moments, yeah, the vulnerable moments, deeply, kind of hit moments, right? And then there are up moments where I could, kind of realize I am in the resilient mode, right?
Mm.
So, what has helped me to move from that vulnerability to resilient mode is certain intersections, right? And then, especially these two are, as you know and I know, these two are the two sides of a coin, sort of, right?
Mm.
And this has been a part of my, be it a workshop, or one-on-one coaching sessions, or some training that I'm conducting, whoever be the audience, right? These two will be a part of my sessions. So kind of, very close to my heart. I thought when we were, after our discussion, initial discussion, I thought, okay, why not I talk about it, which is very close to my heart, right?
Right, right.
So that's the main reason that I chose to, and then thank you so much for agreeing to, have a discussion in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know when we connected and we had a planning conversation around this, one of the things that I can relate to with your experience is that of being an immigrant accompanying spouse here in the US, and your experience of that, and how that has influenced your career choices and what you are today. And I feel like that's another reflection of you being at this intersection as well.
Definitely, definitely. So in fact, I had that in my mind when you were talking about, SLN Brand Studio and all. Immediately, my mind kind of went back to, that space, right? 2008, 9, 10. Yeah.
Mm.
You know that, the entire globe was going through the, crisis, right?
Yes.
Recession and crisis. That's when I had to shift from India to US.
Yeah.
So I was there. I started applying for jobs. I was in a good position in, Tata Consultancy Services when I was quitting my corporate journey. So when I was in that, mode, I was applying for jobs. I was getting some, but not to my satisfaction. Yeah. What is the journey that I had earlier? It was not really mapping with the, the opportunities that I was getting. So
Mm.
and meanwhile, we were also, having other plans, like, personally, we wanted to build a family, whether
Yeah.
be there or shift back to India. There were so many things, confusions, it was really one of my, most vulnerable period, I would say, because
Mm.
I didn't have any other support system, except my husband at that point of time, as far as my professional journey is concerned. And he definitely didn't have that much exposure to what I was doing. Yeah, he was a
Mm.
completely a techie R&D person, whereas I come from the people management, project management, the background. So it was not really easy. So at that, most vulnerable moment, I realized, okay, see, why not I, look into myself, the inward journey, right?
Mm.
Because then that gave me some, clarity on, okay, what exactly I want to do. Do I want to really get into a job, or what exactly I wanted to do, right? Within a few days, of introspection, reflecting, sipping my, tea in the, balcony, looking at all the beautiful, place around my, home, that introspection is what, helped me to get clarity on what exactly I want to do in the long run, right?
Mm.
So that it helps, it would help me to start in the right, path. So, that introspection and reflection is what has helped me to, start a journey as a writer. Writing has been my passion.
Mm.
So writer, resume writing at one point of, for one set of audience, and then content writing for the, other set of audience, like, business, startup ecosystem, business people and all. So that's how it started. But I started that journey, the intersection journey, when I was in the, most vulnerable state, Meenakshi.
Mm. That's wonderful to hear and very insightful. And I moved to the US under fairly similar circumstances as an accompanying spouse, and I moved here in 2008. And I know exactly what you're talking about, those
Yes.
times. Um, what I'm hearing you say is the time you took to reflect and introspect at a time when you felt the most vulnerable is what put you on the path to resilience. And
Yep.
the just connecting those dots is absolutely wonderful. What does this intersection really mean to you?
Absolutely. It's a great question, in fact. Yeah. See, let's understand what exactly vulnerability means, what exactly this, resilience, mean, right?
Mm.
So vulnerability is nothing but, we feel like we are hit from 360-degree,
Mm.
right? Emotionally, we are down. When we are emotionally down, it's going to, kind of reflect in the way of our physiological changes, right?
Mm.
I may get into panic attack, or I may be shivering, right? I don't have enough energy to think clearly. So when somebody is put in that situation where they are hit 360-degree, physically, emotionally, mentally, professionally, whatever we can call it as, right? That is what vulnerability. This is how I'm looking at vulnerability
Mm.
instead of giving any serious definition. Yeah. And what is resilient? Resilience is nothing but not only that I'm coming out of that vulnerable state, also doing something big. Yeah. Either I make myself, I mean, I feel proud of from where to where I have reached, right? Help myself and then start helping. Then the next step after helping myself is start helping others. It could be a target audience, it could be anybody. Yeah? It could be somebody in the family or outside, right? So that is how I am looking at this vulnerability and resilience, right? So when we are talking about the intersection, again, I would like to go back to that vulnerable mode. What exactly happens? So, what is the process that we go through as a part of vulnerability? It starts, most of the times, it starts from fear. Yeah. Fear could, become anxiety, stress, or depression, depending on the intensity of the fear that we are having, intensity of the problem, that vulnerable state that we are in. From that fear, the next step towards that intersection, not towards resilience, towards that intersection is accepting. Yes, I am going through this. Yeah, I'm having issue with in my life. It could be related to my profession or my health or emotions. Accepting that yes, I am in trouble. That is the next step that happens as a part of this moving from vulnerable to the intersection. Once I accept it completely, then I start taking care of myself. Yeah, self care. Once we go through these three steps, we are kind of in the beginnings space of that intersection. Yeah, we are kind of getting into that intersection. I'm going to leave it there, then I'm going to jump into resilience. Yeah. Similarly, what happens with resilience as a part of that resilience, three different steps that I have in my mind. One is whatever the negative feelings that we have, that fear or anxiety, we are trying to overcome that. Right? Overcoming the fear or the negative emotion or energy that we are having. Once we do that, there is a big change that I'm going to go through as a part of this intersection, right? As a part of this transition.
Yeah.
So I get myself, adapted to the change. Yeah, I build that change agility. Once I know that, okay, I have to adapt to these 1, 2, 3, 4, then I start traveling towards self-growth. So fear to acceptance to self-care. Then from self-care, kind of you enter into the intersection and then travel towards it. You're building a strategy, you're building a strategy basically. Then once you reach that resilient state, it's kind of overcoming that fear, overcoming the negative atmosphere or the energy, then moving on to that adaptability, change agility. Then the third is going to be self-growth. In that self-growth path, I am completely resilient. Yeah. So that intersection is nothing but creating a strategy to shift from that vulnerable state to the resilient state. This is how I'm looking at it, Meenakshi.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And it's such a sort of, what I'm seeing is this unique blend of structure and flow, right? So you have these stage gates, if you will, and then there's a sense of flow. And I also think that it's only human to shift back and forth between these stages.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This really reminds me of the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. It's very similar to that. That's what came up for me. We also have a couple of, want to welcome a couple of people that have joined us. Tahurul, thank you for joining, Tahurul, and thank you for your wishes. And we have Sajit Kumar, who has a comment. Hi, Sajit. Sajit is joining us from Canada. So he says, being real and common nowadays is a challenge. Constantly trying to be a personality who you are not will definitely take a toll. The current challenges of future work can do away with additional burden. Vulnerability has no gender or age bias. That's deep, Sajit.
Yep.
What do you say? How do you respond to that?
Definitely. In fact, here, Sajid, thank you so much for writing this, because this vulnerability has no gender or age bias, right? This is really powerful. Yeah, he has really delved deeper. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Yes, of course, when it comes to work, right, especially future of work, we have to remind ourselves that we are in VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, right? Even though we all have got introduced to this acronym, this acronym has been there as a part of our, many years, since many years. But because of this pandemic, all the challenges that we have been going through for the past 2.5 months, 2.5 years, this word, word has kind of become a part of our life, right?
Yeah.
It has moved from the buzzword to the, the real word,
Yeah.
right? So we have to remind ourselves that, see, being vulnerable is where we are thinking about, this VUCA world. Okay, you know what? I am in VUCA world. I am in VUCA world. That is the reason I'm not getting the job. Yeah. So, or I'm struggling in my current job. When I'm having all these negative emotions in my mind about myself, right, and about the organization that I work for, or about the industry that I belong to, or about the job market itself, right, that future of work is going to scare the hell out of me, right? The minute I see that word, I may get into some panic attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I see, well, uncertainty there. Future of work, I don't know what am I going to become,
Mm.
because I am in that vulnerable mode where all my energy is negative.
Mm.
I'm only thinking about what can go wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in this scenario, if you can help yourself to see, for me at that point of time when I had to face that challenge, I could do some introspection because of certain experiences that I had, prior to that, right? I could help myself.
Mm.
If not, I should have reached out for help, right? So
Mm.
first step, what I would recommend is like, see if you can convert that negative energy into positive energy, or accept that, yes, world is like that, but I'm going to sail through that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that on your own, super duper. If not, go ahead and then seek help. There are
Yeah.
so many people like, us, and then there are other people like, if the challenge is something else, if there is a necessity for a therapy, go ahead and then, get help from people. Don't delay taking help. Yeah,
Mm.
see,
Mm.
these are all taking help, delaying taking help or not taking help is a mistake that I had done after some
Mm.
time, right? So I didn't
Yeah.
know that I can, go out and then seek help. That
Yeah.
seeking help is an art. I took some time to, learn that art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I would, recommend. What is that resilient path, seems to you? Yeah. What do you
Right.
visualize as a
Right.
resilient person when it comes to this future of work? Then how can you work towards that? That's what I would, give for Sujit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Kiran, welcome and thank you for joining us. So, Kiran talks about acceptance, acknowledgement, and announcement to the world, and happy being imperfect, feeling the freedom, working on what can be done the natural flow way, and repeating that.
Wow.
That's a lovely framework, Kiran. Thank you so much.
This is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, a lovely summary of what you just shared, Suba.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep, yep. Awesome.
Um, as you were speaking, one of the things that came up for me was in the context of leaders, people leaders, particularly those who are responsible for others in their organization. Uh, what does vulnerability look like for a leader? Uh, I don't know about other parts of the world, but definitely in the US, there's a lot of chatter around vulnerability and courage. And I know Brené Brown has done so
Hmm.
much work in that space. So there's a lot of conversation around that. And so I would like to get your perspective on what does vulnerability look like in the context of leadership?
Definitely. So it's again a, wonderful question, Meenakshi. Thanks for, asking that. Because, I mean, as you rightly mentioned, nowadays we are connecting, a lot of blogs, lot of articles, lot of videos available on, where people are talking about vulnerability, connecting it with, leaders, especially those who are handling people, right? But, this vulnerability is, it's like walking on the, glass pieces, right? We
Mm.
should be very careful not to get hurt.
Mm.
Here, in fact, since you mentioned leader, immediately who comes to my mind is Arnie Sorensen, yeah, the
Mm.
CEO of Marriott. Unfortunately, we lost him to cancer last year, I suppose,
Yeah.
2021, right?
Yeah.
So his video,
Yeah.
when Marriott was going through, I think more than 70% loss, in the initial period of lockdown, he, gave out on, they shared one video on Twitter,
Yeah.
right? Whenever I listen to that, right, I go somewhere, deep within,
Mm.
right? It's a beautiful, at the outshell or at the ground level, it looks like, okay, it's a communication done well,
Mm-hmm.
right? if you go deeper, the work done behind that communication, right?
Yeah.
That is super deep.
Hmm.
I think he was going through, the treatment. Yeah, because
Yes.
he starts talking about that, his look, bald
Yes.
look. I
Yes.
highly recommend people, listening to that video,
Watching that video.
seeing
Yeah.
that, watching that video. More than listening, I should say, they should watch that video, right? So he starts talking about his bald look, which shows that okay, he is going through something else apart from whatever COVID has brought in, right? Then he has the responsibility of multiple, all over the globe there are so many branches, right? I mean, Marriott has branches everywhere, they have hotels everywhere, right? So he has to talk about the business losses, yeah. Then he talks about the pay cut that he and his executive team has taken. So that is kind of setting the tone, right? So here, beyond the tone, beyond the communication, I look deeper here, where I see what all the things these leaders had to go through. Leaders, all of them, not only Arnie, also his executive team, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would have gone through a lot of discussions, brainstorming stuff, focus groups and all, where everybody would have shown some vulnerability over there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and then when it comes to the communication part, how it has been strategized very well, so that it is seen for what it is made for,
Mm.
right? That
Mm.
why behind what he is doing, it was clearly given.
Mm.
So from this video, what I would like to convey here for leaders, yeah, yes, it is good to accept that vulnerability of yours. Yeah, it could be something personal, or it could be something related to the business decisions that leaders are taking. But the way the pre-sessions are done, pre-discussions are done, and then the way it is getting communicated is critical.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
okay to cry in front of millions of audience. It's okay to cry, but after crying, what exact actions that you are taking? So do that, and then come out and then talk about
Mm.
it.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it is not an easy journey for leaders, especially for the past 3 years. As a part of our life journey, whatever we are seeing, leaders are kind of sandwiched. Yeah, they
Mm.
had to answer the management shareholders as well. They had to, they have to in fact, yeah, answer
Yeah.
the community, the bottom line employees. So it's like a delicate walk. The how they are creating that communication strategy and then communicating and showing their vulnerability is critical here.
Mm. Mm. What I picked up, and thank you for making that reference. I just plugged in that video in the chat
Ah,
here.
okay.
And yes, I clearly remember watching that when it first came out. And what I'm picking up from what you shared and what you called out from that video is it's okay to acknowledge and display your emotions, but what you do after that really determines the kind of leader you are.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's so true because uh, in my own experience, I've had leaders who, in the name of being vulnerable, have tended to overshare, and
Mm,
in larger forums within the organization, and I've seen that that can sometimes undermine people's trust, and the level of respect they have for the leader.
true that.
What's your experience with that? Like, how you, I know you talked about it's like walking on glass or eggshells, you said, right?
Yep,
What's
yep,
the
yep.
flip side of a leader being vulnerable? What can go wrong with it?
Definitely. See, one critical element you had already shared, right? Oversharing, right?
Mm,
And then talking about it, but not taking any action, right?
mm,
Then
mm,
kind of their brand value goes completely down, right? Say they lose trust. Initially, what happens? In the name of transparency, right?
mm,
In the name of vulnerability, they feel like, okay, let me be transparent, right? Yes, be transparent, but you should know what to hide.
mm,
See, we have one scene from Mahabharata, right? Uh, to tackle one scenario, somebody shouts out that Ashwatthama, is gone, right? But Ashwatthama is the name of somebody's son, as well as Ashwatthama is the name of the elephant, if I'm not
yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So by hearing that, the other person loses his control, and then it goes the other way. See, likewise, it should not be like we are manipulating something,
Mm,
right? So there is a possibility of the whatever being conveyed, whatever being shown outside or showcased, right? That should be done properly. If not, it's going to spoil the trust that they would have spent long years to build, right? Once the trust goes, automatically it spoils the accountability, the individual accountability that each one of them in the team, they may have already showcased, right? Because they know that, okay, so this person is going to come and cry, but go back and do nothing. That is the perception being created there. So once the accountability is gone or slowed down, then automatically it's going to impact the productivity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like then it's going to, it could be if it is a client facing organization, then clients are going to feel the energy. See, it's everything is a collective energy, right?
True.
Whatever we do, when we say team and then engagement, employee engagement and all, it's nothing but we trying to create some collective energy out of which we can reap something, right? When the source of collective energy is going this way or that way, it's going to create an impact in that collective energy. Then the outcome will be completely negative, right? So it can definitely damage. It's not only the perspective about that leader, it can create a huge damage to the entire organization.
Yeah. And I love the Mahabharata reference, and I'll add that link later on for folks that are not familiar with Mahabharata. Is one of our great Indian epics. So I want to ask you the same question, but for us as individuals, and particularly those of us that are either facing job loss or being forced to pivot or make transitions in our career, we, at least, especially in the US, there's been a lot of chatter around the Great Resignation, but then now I'm seeing the shift towards a series of layoffs, particularly in the tech sector, and more are coming, is what's anticipated. So in this kind of sort of a topsy-turvy environment, what are some things that us as individuals can do to be to still be successful at this intersection? Like, what is our journey from vulnerability to resilience look like?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. See, whether it could be a layoff or great resignation. See, when it comes to great resignation, in fact, I recall a talk, I think in LinkedIn only. Marshall Goldsmith was talking to somebody. Unfortunately, I forgot the other the person's name. She mentioned that great resignation is actually from the other side. It's great aspiration. See, great resignation is from the employer side, right? If you look at it from the individual perspective, right? So if I want to shift from one company to another, especially in this scenario, I'm aspiring something else. It could be money, it could be position, or it could be power, it could be anything, but I'm aspiring to become somebody else than where I am today, right? When I know that I'm not going to get that opportunity in that current organization, I want to jump. This is one side of it, right? Then the second side of it is layoff, right? When somebody has asked you to move out of the organization, right, immediately what comes to our mind is like, okay, you know what, I have done a lot to this organization, but now they are asking me to go out, right? It's going to really build and bring in a lot of negativity, right? Both the situation, right? It could be a great resignation or the layoff. Here, as an individual, one person has been put in the space of searching for some other opportunity. So the initial stages could be a lot of negativity where they feel like victim. It could be victim mentality, yeah, or fixed mindset, I would say. With that fixed mindset or victim mentality, moving ahead is going to be really tough. So here, accepting is very important. Fine. See, in case of great resignation, if I have decided to resign, then I should shift my focus from the current organization to, okay, where do I want to move ahead? Yeah. What is the industry? Do I want to be a part of the same industry? Or do I want to shift to another industry? If it is a part of the same industry, then what sort of organization I want to be a part of? Is it going to be, see, if I'm working in a startup environment, am I exploring the the other sector? Or if I am from the the old age or the established organization, am I looking to explore the startup environment? Yeah. See, this creating strategy again. Yeah. As I mentioned, intersection is nothing but creating strategy. Instead of delving inside and then staying in an organization, cribbing, complaining, start creating a strategy. Yeah. Where do I want to move ahead? Yeah. So how can I avoid such a scenario? Again, how can I avoid putting myself in similar scenario as I am today? Yeah. In the next move. At least for a few years, I should be able to stay in there, right? How can I grow continuously, sustainably? Yeah. So once that is clear, right, immediately shifting towards creating a strategy is very important. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you are not able to do it with yourself, seek help. It could be your friend or some internal mentors or external mentors or coaches. Invest your time and energy, invest your money. By doing that, you will be able to quicken that intersection process. You can jump, instead of walking or instead of slowly driving, you can quickly jump towards that resilient path, right? So then start working on your resume, and then start building a network, or start leveraging the network and share your resume, start preparing for an interview. That's it. I mean, creating a strategy, quickly move towards that intersection. How can you do that on your own or seeking help? That is where the essence is, that's how I'm looking at it, Meenakshi.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you shared about intersections being that ideal space to create strategy. And the feeling of stuckness a lot of times, and that's another side of the same coin of being at a crossroad and not knowing where to go or what the next step to take. And I also loved how you consistently called out that being self-aware that you need help, and if you can't help yourself, seeking out that help. And I think a lot of us struggle with asking for help as well, as you called out and you shared your own experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else that came up for me was in my conversation with one of my other guests, Lotus Buckner. She's an HR and a talent management executive, and one of the things she shared was that update your resume when you're happiest in your current job. So when you talked about that, that came up for me, especially for those of us facing transitions. And she said, and she also connected it with us being energy beings, similar to what you shared about, teams being collective energy. And she shared that when we are our happiest is when we really focus on our accomplishments and our achievements, and we are in a better frame of mind to talk about it, to articulate it as authentically as possible on our resumes.
True that.
So that came up for me. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that because of how
Absolutely.
relevant it was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What are your top 2 or 3 tips for us as individuals to stay the course no matter what? We've talked about vulnerability. What can you talk to us a little bit more about what resilience looks like, and what are your top two or three tips for us to stay on that path?
Definitely. See, as we discussed earlier, right? What exactly resilience means, right? So it is my ability to come out of the vulnerable mode that I am in. That is the first step, right? My ability to come out of it. I heal myself. So I start looking towards growing myself, right? Once I achieve something, then I start looking towards helping others. So this is how the journey goes, right? So here, first step, what I would, I'm a little, process oriented person, Meenakshi. Yeah. So I need to have some clarity in the, steps that I take. So first thing is, you know, finding the reason behind, or, finding the answer to the why behind what. That is very, very important. Yeah. So what is the higher purpose that I'm keeping for myself? That is something that helped me when I was, in the transition, when I was in the US, when I was transitioning from after quitting that to becoming something on my own, right? So at that point of time, couple of questions that I asked myself, I would like to share here, right? So whatever I decide to start today, what exactly am I going to do with that? Yeah. So I had 2 different answers. One is like, probably after 5 or 6 years, I may, look towards joining back the corporate world where I left, or I should be able to grow consistently. I didn't know, who I am, going to become, like, and then the futuristic Suba, I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't have any plans. So one clarity I had is like, okay, whatever I'm doing today, it should help me to sustainably grow. To grow, to have that path, the sustainable growth path, what are the things that I should have? I should create an ecosystem around me. Yeah. When I say the ecosystem, it could be people, or it could be my ability to continuously study something, upskill myself, right? And then take care of my emotional health. My emotional health is, completely relying on my family health, right? So how can I balance all these? Then what I decided is like, okay, initially I will be only looking at the balance. Yeah. So I was focusing more on my continuous studies, slowly upping my, services one, on top of another.
Mm.
I didn't have any financial goal at that point of time. You would be, this is something that I should share. Yeah. After when I started off as a, content writer and a resume writer, my first earning was $2. Okay, December 17th, I think 2009, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, December 17th, $2 came to my PayPal account. That was my most, what can I say, satisfying, moment, I would say. Yeah. So how can I grow this $2 to 20, 200, 2000 was there in my mind, but I was not really bothered about those dollars at that point of time. See, nowadays I feel like maybe I should have bothered, but anyway, that's what helped me at that point of time to, be there in that space. Right? So I was focusing more on that. So here, what am I trying to tell here is have clarity on what exactly you want to become. Yeah. The resilient you, what is the, how does it look like for you? That's where the first step should be. Yeah. And what is the higher purpose behind that resilient you?
Mm.
Get clarity. That should be the second step.
Mm.
Then start working towards, okay, where am I today? Start understanding, observing my energy. See, again and again, energy is, what is ruling us, right? So what is my energy? And then label that energy.
Mm.
Fourth step should be labeling that energy. Is it fear? Then what is the, equivalent emotion or the energy when I am in that resilient mode? If it is anxiety, then what is it? So once I label it, I'll know the intensity of the negativity that I'm having at that
Mm.
moment, in
Mm.
that vulnerable state. Then I'll start taking steps towards converting that negative energy into a positive energy. That
Mm.
should be the fifth step, I would say. Then comes the other ecosystem. If I'm looking for a job, then resume building, building a network. All these strategy part of it comes once I understand the energy that I am having, and then how I want it to be converted or
Mm.
transformed.
Mm.
Then it's like, the resilience becomes the byproduct. We don't have to really, really sweat on it unless, once we have clarity on all these. That's
Mm.
what I would say, Meenakshi.
How beautifully said. And I love it. I love
Thank
the
you.
call out you made for all the inner work that needs
Mm.
to happen before you even start creating a strategy.
Yeah.
We have a comment here. Hi, Selvi. Name it to tame it, as they say.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Super.
that also reminded me of Professor Susan David's work on emotional agility, and
Mm.
where she talks about emotions being data, not directive,
Yep.
right? So, and naming it is one way of acknowledging it, and then also being able to figure out where you want to go next from there. Thank you for sharing all this, all your wisdom and insight so generously, Subha. So, as
Thanks.
we begin to wrap up this conversation,
Sure.
what are your parting thoughts about this intersection?
Wow, this is like a beautiful, beautiful experience for me, Meenakshi. I would say I should be a part of it as often as possible. That would be my request. You're talking
Absolutely.
about different intersections. Yes, of course, I have been, listening to all your, earlier episodes as well, yeah, with Priya
Uh-huh.
and, with everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful journey that you have started, through which we all are gaining a lot, right?
Hmm.
It's like, okay, today I got an opportunity to share, yeah, from my experience and expertise. But if I look back, there is a lot for me to learn. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's like a two-way, that intersection, we have made it as a two-way, journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that, okay, if I feel, like, okay, I'm in vulnerable state in any point of, in my life, I know that I have something to look, I just have to replay this video. So that, okay, fine. You know what? Once you had given these thoughts to somebody, have you forgotten that?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like a beautiful platform that you have created for each one of us. Like, and this is not only for one particular segment, right? Anybody and everybody, even my 10-year-old son, if I make him listen to all these, he will be able to understand at least the big picture,
Yeah.
if not the intricacies, right? So likewise, from teenagers to college students to the entry-level professionals to mid-level to C-suite, you have, especially the topics that you come up with, right, intersections that you come up with, collaborating with the, wonderful, awesome speakers, It's been a great platform. My gratitude to you for creating such a platform for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Subha. Thank you.
Thank you.
I so appreciate that, and and I think the guests as they come in and the intersections that they choose to talk about, like you did with this one, I think that's what makes it so enriching. And I take away personally so much from each of these conversations, and it's such a privilege to be doing this live, sitting across from or beside you, depending on where we are on the pixels on the screen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then making it organic, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's something that I like to tell a lot. That is something I think I should call it out, right? It's not like we are having a we are having a script and then we are talking about it. Making it organic is helping, I think, the speakers as well to delve deeper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
I don't know
appreciate that.
if you had given me any questions earlier, right? I don't know how. Maybe I would be quoting something from somewhere, not really, expressing it from my own experience and from my own, expressions.
Yeah.
So thanks for creating, that space, that organic space. That is something that I must appreciate here, acknowledge and appreciate here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabah.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, everyone who joined us live. And for those who will be watching the recording, thank you so much for taking time to be here with us. And until next time, take care and be well. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much, Meenakshi, and everyone here. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks.